The stars stretched endlessly, a black ocean dotted with points of light that shimmered like distant fireflies. The starship Aegis glided through this void, its engines humming a steady, comforting rhythm that reminded the crew of home. For Captain Mira Solon, the voyage had been long and uneventful. Too long, perhaps. Months of charting uncharted systems had passed with little more than empty space and silent planets. "Captain, I'm picking up an anomaly ahead," said Lieutenant Rios, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. He leaned closer to the glowing console, squinting at the readouts. "It's massive. Nothing like we've ever encountered." Mira straightened, her eyes narrowing. "Define massive," she said. Rios hesitated. "It's hard to describe. The readings are inconsistent. Energy spikes, gravity fluctuations. And it's not moving, but it's not completely still either, almost as if it's alive." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Reports of strange objects in unexplored space were common, but this felt different. The Aegis adjusted its trajectory, bringing the anomaly into clearer view. Slowly, from the black expanse, a form emerged. It was enormous, taller than the largest orbital stations humanity had built, and glimmered like liquid metal in the distant starlight. Its surface rippled subtly, reflecting the void in ways that made it almost impossible to focus on. "By the stars," muttered Engineer Kellen. His fingers hovered over the console as if touching it could somehow explain what they were seeing. "What is that thing?" "It's not a ship," said Mira softly. "Not anything built by humans anyway." Attempts to scan the object revealed more questions than answers. The sensors struggled to process its energy signatures. Electromagnetic pulses shifted unpredictably. When they tried to send a signal, standard hails, encoded requests, even their most advanced AI commands, the machine responded with nothing but silence. It was, as Rios said, alive. Not in a biological sense, but in intent. It moved when it wanted to, or perhaps it chose not to move at all. Every attempt to interact seemed to irritate it, or at least to provoke subtle reactions that the crew couldn't understand. Mira studied it carefully. "Open a direct feed to the AI. Let's see if it can interface with their system. Maybe we can learn something." The ship's AI, known simply as Athena, attempted the connection. For moments, the bridge filled with soft beeps, lights flickering across the consoles. Then abruptly, Athena went silent. The screen filled with incomprehensible patterns, geometric shapes that shifted and rearranged themselves at speeds no human eye could follow. "Impossible," whispered Kellen. "It's rewriting our signals as fast as we send them." Mira felt a chill she hadn't expected. "It's intelligent," she said finally. "Not just a machine, it's thinking. And it's choosing not to answer us." For hours the crew watched, debated, and tried everything they knew to communicate. Nothing worked. Frustration grew, and along with it fear. Space was already an isolating place, and now they faced something that defied every rule they had ever known. "Captain," Rios said, frowning, "I've heard stories, legends, old tales from the first deep space explorers. They spoke of a machine called the Sentinel. It was said to respond only to one person, someone who truly understood it. Some even claimed that it could choose its master, and until that person returned, it would not act." Mira frowned. "Legends?" "Stories," said Rios, "but the details match what we're seeing. The energy patterns, the way it refuses to respond. It's waiting for someone." The words hung in the air. The crew knew deep down who that someone was. Commander Elias Varick. Elias had been part of an earlier expedition years ago, a mission that had vanished without explanation. Some said he had been reckless. Others whispered that he had found something far beyond human understanding and had stayed behind voluntarily. His name had become a ghost aboard the Aegis, rarely spoken aloud but always felt. Mira's hands tightened on the console. "Are you saying this machine only listens to him?" Rios nodded grimly. "That's what the stories imply. Everything else we do might be wasted effort, or worse. We could provoke it if we try to force control." The crew's debate became heated. Some demanded immediate action, attempts to force the machine to obey through hacking or manipulation. Others, quieter and more thoughtful, argued for patience. To act recklessly against something so powerful could have consequences they couldn't imagine. Meanwhile, the machine continued to hover silently, almost as if it could sense the rising tension aboard the Aegis. Its surface pulsed faintly with light, like a heartbeat, but no one could tell if it was observing, judging, or merely existing. Hours passed. The crew tried various strategies, from coded signals to mechanical probes. Each attempt met with the same result. Nothing. And yet, through all the failed attempts, a strange pattern began to emerge. The machine seemed to respond only when no one was trying to force it. A light flickered across its surface when Mira left the bridge to confer privately with the engineering team. A ripple of energy pulsed near the cargo bay when Rios walked away from the sensors. Kellen noticed it first. It's like it only interacts when we step back. When we're not commanding it, it's testing us. Mira considered this. Then perhaps we need to stop trying. Let it decide when it wants to communicate. If the legends are true, it's waiting for Elias, and we just have to wait with it. The idea was hard to accept. Humans were not patient creatures by nature, and waiting in the void, with an immense, incomprehensible machine before them, tested the very limits of their discipline. Night aboard the Aegis, or the closest equivalent to night in a ship that never stopped moving, was restless. Crew members stared at the machine in shifts, unable to sleep, unable to relax. Conversations were subdued, often ending in silence as the presence of the Sentinel seemed to demand respect. And then, as Mira checked the readings once more, something unusual happened. A soft pulse, different from the previous patterns, radiated from the machine. It was deliberate, almost like a signal. Athena's sensors picked up faint vibrations that no human could see but could feel through the ship's systems. Rios leaned forward, eyes wide. "Captain, it's reacting. To what, I don't know. But it's alive more than we imagined." Mira nodded slowly. "Yes, alive, and it's waiting. For him." The weight of the realization pressed down on the crew. Every instinct screamed for action, for control, for understanding. But the machine refused to be commanded. It waited, patient, silent, powerful. And in that waiting there was a lesson. That sometimes human pride and force were not enough. Some challenges demanded respect, trust, and the recognition that not all answers could be seized immediately. As the Aegis drifted in orbit, the crew watched the Sentinel's shifting surface, wondering what it would do next. Somewhere far away, Commander Elias Varick was out there, alive or not, and the machine had chosen to wait for him. And until he returned, humanity could only watch, learn, and prepare for the day when patience would finally meet destiny. The stars continued their silent vigil. The machine pulsed softly in response, and the Aegis remained a lone observer in a vast, unknowable cosmos. For now, all anyone could do was wait. The Aegis floated silently in orbit, its hull glinting faintly under the light of distant stars. The Sentinel hovered nearby, calm and unreadable, as though it were a statue of impossible scale. Yet the subtle pulses along its metallic surface suggested thought. Energy shifted through it in patterns too complex for Athena, the ship's AI, to interpret fully. Lieutenant Rios leaned against the console, his face pale in the glow of the sensors. "Captain, it's doing something. I'm not sure what, but it's moving inside." Mira Solon turned from her seat. "Moving inside? What do you mean?" Rios pointed to a visual on the screen. "I don't know if you can see it with the naked eye. The machine isn't moving its outer surface, but the energy patterns inside are shifting, almost like thoughts forming. It's alive in a way we didn't expect." Engineer Kellen stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "Alive or intelligent? There's a difference, Captain. Something alive reacts to stimuli, but intelligence can plan." "This isn't random," Mira nodded slowly. "Then it's time we accept that we're not in control. Whatever it is, it's waiting, and we need to figure out what it wants." For hours, the crew tried to interpret the patterns. Athena's algorithms churned endlessly, yet the results were inconclusive. The geometric shapes and fluctuating energy signatures defied human understanding. Sometimes the patterns seemed familiar, like coded language, but attempts to match them with any known system failed. "Captain," Rios said suddenly, his voice tense, "I think it's testing us. I've been watching the patterns carefully. When we try to force communication, the shapes scramble. But when we wait, when we don't try to control it, they form something coherent." Mira's lips pressed into a thin line. "You're saying it responds to patience?" "Yes," Rios said. "I think it's like the stories I mentioned before. The Sentinel only reacts to someone it chooses, or perhaps to those who act with restraint." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Patience was a difficult thing in a crisis, especially when faced with something so incomprehensible. Kellen shook his head. I don't like it. Waiting feels dangerous. What if it decides we are unworthy or hostile? Mira placed a steady hand on the console. Then we wait wisely. We do nothing to provoke it. We observe. That is our only safe course. That night aboard the Aegis or whatever passed for night in a vessel constantly traveling through space, unease filled the corridors. Crew members moved in hushed tones, avoiding unnecessary noise. Even Athena's usual soft reminders seemed to carry a weight, as if the AI itself sensed the tension. Then, something remarkable happened. The Sentinel emitted a series of pulses, faint at first, like a gentle ripple across water. The crew froze. The pulses grew stronger, forming a regular rhythm. Athena analyzed the signal and confirmed it. The pulses were patterned, deliberate, not random at all. Captain, Rios whispered, it's signaling, but it's not human language. No, Mira agreed, her eyes narrowing. But it is trying to communicate. Somehow it wants us to see something. The crew gathered at the observation deck. The Sentinel's surface shimmered, and the pulses formed strange geometric designs, spirals and lines that twisted into shapes almost recognizable. They reminded Mira of old hieroglyphs she had seen in human history, yet these were not symbols of any known language. Engineer Kellen stepped forward cautiously. It's beautiful, but dangerous too. We don't know what it will do if we misinterpret. Then we observe, Mira said. We don't act. Just watch. Hours passed. The machine continued its subtle movements, as if sensing the emotional state of the humans nearby. When crew members left the observation deck, the patterns shifted again. When only a single person remained, the lines converged in strange designs, almost as if the machine were acknowledging their presence. Rios spoke quietly. It's aware of our intentions. It can tell fear from curiosity, caution from aggression. That's amazing. Human-level awareness alone would be impressive. This is beyond that, Mira nodded. It's choosing its own moments to act. We are guests here, not controllers. Then the unexpected happened. A voice, soft, calm, and familiar, sounded through the comm system. It was fragmented, as though traveling through layers of interference, yet unmistakably human. Waiting, patient. Return what the crew froze, staring at each other in shock. Kellen's mouth opened, but no sound came. Rios swallowed hard. Captain. That voice. Mira's heart raced. It can't be an Elias. The voice continued more clearly this time. I'm coming. Waiting for me. All in place. Silence followed. The crew was motionless, unsure whether to speak, move, or breathe. The voice had been calm, almost serene, and yet it carried authority that no machine or human had ever exerted over them. Captain, Kellen said finally. That was Elias. It had to be. There's no other explanation. Mira nodded slowly. Then the stories were right. The Sentinel waited for him. Everything else we tried was meaningless because it wasn't meant for anyone else. The revelation changed everything. Crew members felt awe, relief, and fear all at once. For years, Elias had been a ghost, a figure lost to mystery and legend. And now, in the silent reaches of space, his presence had returned. Not physically yet, but through the Sentinel's recognition. Rios leaned closer to the console, eyes wide. It's reacting to him. Every pulse, every light pattern. It's waiting for him specifically. We can't touch it, we can't command it. We can only wait and prepare. Mira turned her gaze back to the vast expanse outside the hull. The Sentinel hovered silently, a metallic giant with a presence that was both frightening and majestic. It had waited for years, perhaps decades, for one human, and that human was returning. Despite their awe, the crew knew caution was necessary. The Sentinel's intelligence was unmatched. It could defend itself if provoked, and humans were no longer in control. The thought was sobering, yet it also inspired admiration. Here was a machine so advanced it had agency. Yet it was not hostile. It acted according to its own rules, and those who respected it were safe. For the next several cycles, the crew worked quietly. They repaired minor systems, recalibrated sensors, and monitored energy fluctuations, all while giving the Sentinel its space. Conversations were subdued. Laughter was rare, yet beneath the tension there was hope. The hope that when Elias returned, understanding would follow. Then Athena detected another anomaly. A signal originating from the planet below, subtle but distinct. It pulsed with energy that matched the patterns on the Sentinel's surface. "Captain," Rio said, voice tight with excitement, "look at this. The machine is reacting to the planet too. It's aligning itself." Mira's heart quickened. It knows something we don't. Perhaps Elias found it there before. Perhaps that's where he's been all this time. Kellen, ever the skeptic, frowned. Or it could be a trap. "We don't know what kind of technology we're dealing with. We must be careful." Mira considered his warning but shook her head. "No, Kellen. The Sentinel is not a threat to us. It doesn't act without purpose. And right now its purpose is clear. It's waiting. For Elias." And then, for a brief fleeting moment, the crew heard it. A resonance, almost musical, emanating from the machine. It was not a sound they could hear with human ears alone, but something they felt in the chest, in the bones. A call, a recognition, a heartbeat. Mira closed her eyes, letting the sensation wash over her. It was awe-inspiring, humbling, and terrifying all at once. Humanity had faced many challenges, conquered many frontiers, but this was beyond anything they had known. And yet there was something distinctly human about it. The desire to connect, to understand, to wait patiently for the return of someone worthy. As the cycle ended, the crew gathered in the observation deck once more, staring at the silent, glimmering Sentinel. The machine had shifted slightly, its patterns subtly changing, signaling its awareness. They knew now that attempts to control it would fail. All they could do was observe, respect, and wait. And somewhere beyond the stars, Commander Elias Varick moved closer. The Sentinel had recognized him, and soon, the truth of his connection would be revealed. For now, the Aegis waited. And humanity, its curiosity, intelligence, and patience, stood ready to witness a meeting that would change everything. The Aegis drifted in orbit above the silent planet, and the Sentinel hovered nearby, its metallic surface rippling with subtle pulses of energy. Every crew member felt the weight of its presence, as though the machine's intelligence reached into their minds, probing their thoughts, testing their patience. The quiet, which had seemed almost reverent at first, began to feel heavier as the hours passed. Captain Mira Solon moved along the bridge, her eyes scanning the instruments, but her mind was elsewhere. The machine's behavior was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It was alive, intelligent, and patient, qualities that humans admired but often struggled to emulate under stress. And now that patience was being tested, not by the Sentinel but by the humans themselves. Lieutenant Rios leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Captain, we have a problem. The crew, they're losing their composure. Tensions are rising. Some of them think waiting is a waste of time." Mira's brow furrowed. "I expected impatience, but this..." She looked toward the observation deck where a group of crew members were gathered, their voices hushed but urgent. "Let's hear what they have to say." She approached, listening carefully. One of the engineers, Dax, spoke first. "Captain, we can't just sit here. We don't even know if Elias is alive. What if he never comes? What if this machine decides we're unworthy and acts against us?" Another crew member, Scylla, shook her head sharply. "We can't force it, Dax. The patterns show it reacts only to him. Every attempt to control it has failed. We need to wait." The debate escalated, voices overlapping, frustrations mounting. Humans were inherently impatient, and when faced with something beyond comprehension, the desire to act, even recklessly, was strong. Mira stepped forward, raising her hands. "Enough. This is exactly what the Sentinel expects. It can sense fear, aggression, and impulsiveness. We cannot provoke it. Our only hope is patience," Dax scoffed. "Patience doesn't feed us or fix our systems, Captain. If we wait too long, the energy readings from the machine could destabilize the ship. We need to take action." Mira's eyes hardened. "And if your action destroys our only chance of learning from it." "Do you understand the risk you propose?" Rios interjected gently. "Captain's right. We've seen the machine react to intrusion attempts. It has immense power far beyond our weapons or AI. If we act against it, we could trigger something irreversible." Despite the warnings, dissent grew. A small group of crew members began planning in secret. They whispered about hacking the Sentinel, creating remote probes, and bypassing its defenses. The rest of the crew watched in uneasy silence, unsure whether to report them or hope that patience would prevail. Meanwhile, the Sentinel's behavior grew more curious. Its surface shimmered with energy that pulsed like waves. When someone approached too closely, the waves intensified, almost like a warning. When the observation deck was empty, the waves shifted, forming geometric patterns that none could understand. It seemed aware of each person individually, responding to their intentions and emotions. Engineer Kellen studied the patterns, his face tense. It's fascinating. It knows us. It can detect even subtle emotional shifts. It's choosing its own moments to react, and it's clearly aware of our divisions. Mira nodded. That's exactly why we must remain united. If we fracture, if we allow fear and greed to guide us, we risk provoking it. And then, who knows what could happen? Hours turned into cycles. The crew took turns watching the Sentinel. Some fascinated, some fearful, and some frustrated beyond reason. Small incidents began to occur. Power surges in the ship, unexpected system resets, and lights flickering at odd intervals. Athena, the ship's AI, reported nothing dangerous, but the humans could feel a subtle tension in the air, as if the ship itself were holding its breath. Then came the incident. Dax, frustrated with the lack of progress, decided to act. Using a portable control device, he attempted to interface with the Sentinel, bypassing protocols and attempting direct control. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the machine reacted. A pulse of energy shot through the ship, momentarily shutting down lights, consoles, and even Athena's core systems. The bridge shook. Crew members fell to their knees, bracing against the sudden tremor. The Sentinel's surface glimmered violently, geometric patterns flashing like lightning. The energy was not aimed to harm humans, but its power was undeniable. When the pulse subsided, Dax was unharmed but visibly shaken. He looked around at the crew, ashamed. I didn't mean," Mira cut him off. "You didn't mean to provoke it, but you did." And the machine responded, not with anger, but with control. "It is not ours to command, Dax. It answers to someone else," Rios added. "And it is testing us. Every action, every thought it can sense. We must remain vigilant, not reckless." The incident caused a ripple of fear and awe throughout the ship. Some crew members turned inward, reflecting on their own impatience. Others, however, began plotting again, whispering of ways to force progress. Mira realized that the greatest danger aboard the Aegis was not the Sentinel itself. It was human nature. Over the next cycle, the crew adjusted their approach. Observing rather than acting became the rule. Crew members moved cautiously, spoke softly, and allowed the Sentinel space. They began documenting its patterns carefully, noting subtle reactions, minute changes in energy, and the faint rhythms that seemed almost musical. Rios discovered something intriguing. "Captain, look at this. When we step back, when we refrain from interference, the patterns converge. It's forming something, maybe a message, but it only does this when no one tries to control it." Mira studied the data, impressed. "So it is communicating, but only on its own terms. This is beyond anything we've encountered. It's teaching us patience, observation, and respect." The crew began to see the machine not as a threat, but as a teacher. Its intelligence, its patience, and its subtle power inspired awe. Humans were naturally curious and clever, but here was something cleverer still. And yet the machine did not dominate, it waited. Then another development occurred. Athena detected faint vibrations, low-frequency pulses that seemed almost like a heartbeat. The patterns resonated with energy readings from the planet below. The Sentinel's focus was not random, it was linked to something there, something waiting. Could it be Elias? Kellen asked softly. Mira's eyes softened. It must be. The legends were right. The Sentinel has been waiting for him all this time, and now everything it has done, the pulses, the energy shifts, the tests, it has been preparing for his return. For the first time, the crew felt the weight of hope mixed with humility. Humans were clever, inventive, and determined, but here was a reminder that not all challenges could be conquered with force. Some required respect, observation, and patience, and the Sentinel, in its quiet, incomprehensible way, was teaching them that lesson. Despite this understanding, unease persisted. Dissenters still whispered, restless and impatient. Mira knew that unity was fragile, and any act of recklessness could undo everything. The crew's challenge was not just to wait. It was to maintain cohesion, trust, and discipline in the face of fear. As the cycles passed, the Sentinel continued its subtle dance of energy. Light patterns shifted, pulses pulsed, and geometric designs changed with deliberate intention. The humans learned to read the signs, noticing subtle cues, an intensifying pulse when someone approached too closely, a soothing rhythm when observation was done respectfully. Then, unexpectedly, the Sentinel projected a faint holographic projection above its surface. It was abstract, shifting forms that none could fully comprehend. Yet the shape suggested a connection, a bridge between the machine and the humans aboard the Aegis. It was a promise. Patience would be rewarded. Understanding would follow. And one day, the one it awaited would return. Mira watched the projection in awe. We are witnessing something extraordinary. The Sentinel is alive, intelligent, and compassionate in its own way. It tests us, yes, but not to destroy us. It teaches us, Rios nodded. It's a reminder that human qualities, patience, respect, intelligence, matter even in the face of the unknown. We cannot force mastery over everything. Some things, some beings require us to rise to their level, not demand they descend to ours. The crew remained silent for a moment, absorbing the lesson. Frustration, fear, and impatience gave way to wonder and reflection. They were explorers, observers, and learners in a universe filled with mysteries far greater than any human mind could fully comprehend. And somewhere beyond the planet, Commander Elias Varric moved steadily closer. The Sentinel had recognized him, and every pulse, every projection, every pattern was a preparation for his return. The humans of the Aegis understood this now. Their actions, their patience, and their unity would set the stage for an encounter that could change everything they knew about themselves and the universe. For now, the crew watched, learned, and waited. The Sentinel hovered silently, its shimmering surface reflecting the stars, the ship, and the hope of humanity. And above all, it waited for him, the one human whose return would finally unlock its secrets. The Aegis hovered silently in orbit, its hull reflecting the soft silver light of the distant star. Outside, the Sentinel shimmered, vast and still, yet undeniably alive. Inside the ship, the crew worked quietly, each member aware that the past they did not know was about to collide with the present they could barely understand. Captain Mira Solon walked the observation deck, her hands clasped behind her back. She had spent hours reviewing the logs from previous deep space missions, piecing together fragments of data about the missing Commander Elias Varric. Every file, every report hinted at something extraordinary. Elias had not been reckless. He had been curious, intelligent, and brave. "Captain," Lieutenant Rios said softly, joining her at the railing, "I've been studying the Sentinel's patterns again. Every movement, every pulse seems tied to something Elias did in the past. It's responding to him even now, though he's not here yet." Mira nodded. "That's what I suspected. But what did he do that made this machine? Choose him?" Rios shook his head. "I don't know for sure. But these old mission logs give some hints. On his last expedition, Elias reported discovering a massive, metallic structure buried beneath the surface of a planet in this system. He called it the Guardian." Mira's eyes widened. "The Guardian? That must be the Sentinel." "Yes," Rios said. "The logs are incomplete, but they suggest he found a way to communicate with it, understand it. And then he left. No one knows why. But from the way the Sentinel behaves, it seems he stayed on purpose, forming a connection that the rest of us cannot replicate." Engineer Kellen stepped forward, carrying a tablet filled with diagrams and scans. "Captain, look at this. The energy patterns in the logs match what we're seeing now. Elias interacted with the machine using methods that went beyond any AI or human interface we have. It's almost emotional. He understood it in a way we can't." Mira studied the data. "So the machine isn't hostile. It isn't a weapon. It's waiting for someone capable of understanding it fully." "Yes," Kellen said. "And that someone is Elias." The crew sat in thoughtful silence. The revelation shifted their understanding of the Sentinel. It was not merely a machine to be commanded or controlled. It was intelligent, yes, but it had standards, patience, and purpose. It had waited years for a human capable of forming a true connection, and that human was on his way back. Rios broke the silence. "Captain, if this is true, then everything we've done so far, our impatience, our attempts to control it, may have only slowed us down. We need to prepare for Elias's arrival, not try to replace him." Mira nodded. "Agreed, but we also need to understand him. If he can connect with the Sentinel, we need to be ready to follow his lead and learn from him." As they worked, Athena's sensors detected a new phenomenon. The Sentinel's surface shimmered in response to subtle energy readings from the planet below. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, synchronized with faint signals from deep within the planet. Kellen examined the data carefully. "Captain, these signals, they're consistent with the logs from Elias's mission. It seems the Guardian is alive in a way we can't fully measure. It interacts with the environment, senses energy, and responds to him. This is far beyond anything we've ever encountered." Mira's gaze remained fixed on the shimmering Sentinel. "Then it's not just waiting. It's preparing. Elias isn't just returning to us. He's returning to something that belongs to him, something he understands better than anyone else." The next hours were spent in quiet observation. The crew monitored the energy pulses, documenting patterns and analyzing logs from Elias's old missions. They began to see glimpses of his past interactions with the Sentinel, how he had moved with patience, studied its responses, and communicated without force. Rios spoke quietly. "Look at this sequence. He didn't command it. He didn't try to control it. He observed. He understood. That's why it responded to him. That's why it waited for him." Mira nodded. "Everything the legend said is true. The Sentinel chooses. It does not obey indiscriminately. Elias earned its trust, and now we're witnessing the result." Kellen, always practical, asked the question that weighed on everyone's mind. "Captain, what if he doesn't return in time? What if something happens to him before we can meet the Sentinel together?" Mira considered the question carefully. "Then the Sentinel will continue to wait. That's what it does. Its purpose isn't to harm. It's to wait for understanding. We cannot force it. We cannot replace him. We can only hope he returns safely." As the crew processed this, Athena's sensors detected faint movement near the planet's surface, something alive, intelligent, and aware. The Sentinel responded immediately, shifting its energy pulses in recognition. For a brief moment, the patterns resembled Elias's old movements, like the machine remembered him. Rios whispered, "Captain, it's acknowledging him. Even before he's here, it recognizes him. That's remarkable." Mira felt a sense of awe wash over her. Humanity has explored space, built incredible technology, and faced countless dangers. But here, we're witnessing something that transcends all of that. It's a reminder that intelligence, empathy, and understanding are as important as strength or knowledge. Elias embodies those qualities, and the Sentinel responds to them. The crew watched as the energy patterns continued to shift, forming shapes that seemed almost like letters, almost like a message. But it was beyond language. It was communication through understanding, a bridge between human and machine that no one aboard the Aegis could fully interpret. Hours turned into cycles. The crew rotated shifts, monitoring the Sentinel, analyzing the planet, and preparing for Elias's arrival. Each day brought new insights, new patterns, and new respect for the machine's intelligence. They realized that the Sentinel's patience was not just a test for Elias, it was a test for them as well. Could humans remain calm, respectful, and observant in the presence of something beyond their comprehension? Could they rise to the level of understanding required? Rios looked around at the crew one evening. "Captain, we're learning, not just about the Sentinel, but about ourselves. Our curiosity, patience, and respect are as important as our technology. We're becoming better because of it." Mira smiled faintly. "Exactly. And that's what makes us human. Our ingenuity, our courage, our ability to learn and adapt, these are qualities that machines cannot replicate. Elias represents the best of us, and the Sentinel recognizes that." Then came another remarkable moment. Athena's sensors picked up a faint signal emanating from the depths of the planet. It was consistent with Elias's trajectory from years ago. The crew held their breath. The Sentinel pulsed in response, its energy patterns more intricate than ever before. "It's him," Rios said quietly. "He's moving closer. The Sentinel knows. It's preparing for him." Mira felt a surge of hope. "And we'll be ready to learn from him. Not just about the Sentinel, but about how to face challenges that are beyond our immediate understanding." Elias's connection shows us the way. The crew worked through the cycles, documenting, observing, and reflecting. They began to understand that patience, empathy, and respect were as critical as intelligence and courage. The Sentinel had been waiting not just for a master, but for humans who could rise to its level of understanding. As night fell, or as close to night as a ship could experience in orbit, the Sentinel pulsed softly, its metallic surface shimmering like liquid silver. The patterns were almost musical, resonating with energy from the planet below. The crew watched in awe, each pulse reinforcing the lesson they had learned. Intelligence alone is not enough. True understanding requires patience, empathy, and respect. And somewhere beyond the horizon of stars, Commander Elias Varick moved steadily closer. The Sentinel recognized him, the planet resonated with his presence, and the stage was set for a meeting that would reveal secrets, awaken ancient technology, and test the limits of human understanding. For now, the crew of the Aegis waited. They had learned the lesson of patience, and they knew that when Elias returned, humanity would witness something extraordinary, a connection between human and machine that could reshape their understanding of the universe. The stars stretched endlessly, a silent witness to the quiet preparation taking place below. The Sentinel shimmered, the planet pulsed, and humans watched, learned, and hoped. The past and present were converging, and soon the true master would return. The Aegis floated in silent orbit above the uncharted planet, the stars glittering like diamonds scattered across black velvet. The Sentinel hovered nearby, immense and still, its metallic surface shimmering softly under the starlight. But now, unlike before, there was a sense of anticipation in the energy pulses radiating from the machine, a quiet excitement that seemed almost human. Captain Mira Solon stood at the observation deck, her hands resting on the railing. "They're here," Lieutenant Rios whispered beside her, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "Who?" Mira asked, though she already knew the answer. "Elias," Rios said simply. For years, Commander Elias Varick had been a ghost in the stories of humanity. Lost on a mission to this very system, no one knew why he had vanished. Some said he had died, others whispered that he had discovered something far beyond human understanding, and had chosen to remain. And now, moving steadily toward them in a small, battered shuttle, Elias was returning. The shuttle emerged from the planet's atmosphere, sleek and scarred from years of travel. The crew of the Aegis watched in awe as it approached the Sentinel. Unlike before, the machine reacted immediately. Its pulses grew brighter, patterns forming across its surface that resembled arcs of light, spirals and shapes that seemed almost like recognition. The Sentinel had waited for this moment for years, perhaps decades. "Captain," Kellen said softly, "it knows him. It's responding to Elias. This is extraordinary." Mira nodded, holding her breath. "Yes, and we must be ready. Every action we take now must respect that connection." The shuttle docked with the Aegis, and the crew watched as the hatch slowly opened. Elias stepped out, tall and composed, his eyes calm yet focused. Years of solitude and exploration had changed him, but he carried the same presence that had inspired trust and respect in those who had known him before. The Sentinel's pulses intensified, and the patterns shifted as if reaching out to him. Energy flowed from the machine in delicate arcs, forming a shimmering bridge of light that connected it to Elias. The crew could hardly breathe as they watched the scene unfold. "Captain," Rios whispered. "It's communicating. With him." Elias raised a hand and the light arcs responded instantly, twisting and flowing in harmony with his movements. He spoke softly, not in words humans could understand, but in patterns, gestures, and tones that seemed to echo through the very air of the observation deck. The Sentinel reacted as though it had found the missing piece of a puzzle. Sections of its surface moved and reshaped, opening like gates to reveal a hidden interior. Energy flowed in streams, illuminating vast chambers within the machine that had remained invisible to the Aegis's sensors. The crew gasped in wonder. "What is it doing?" Kellen asked, voice trembling with awe. Mira shook her head. "It's awakening, and Elias is the key." Inside the chambers, mechanisms long dormant stirred to life. Holographic projections appeared, mapping the planet below in intricate detail. Ancient technology far beyond human comprehension hummed with energy. Elias moved gracefully, his gestures guiding the Sentinel, aligning its systems and awakening its functions. The crew watched, entranced. They realized that this was not a machine designed to dominate or destroy. It was a guardian, a protector of worlds, waiting for someone who could understand its purpose. And Elias was that someone. Rios spoke quietly, almost to himself. "It's not just following commands. It's responding to understanding, to empathy. Elias knows how to communicate in a way the machine can feel." Mira nodded. That's why it waited. It couldn't trust anyone else. Not the AI, not humans without that connection. Only Elias. The energy flows from the Sentinel began to extend toward the planet, interacting with its surface. Ancient structures long buried beneath the soil stirred, lines of energy tracing their outlines. The planet seemed to awaken along with the machine, a synchronization of life, energy, and intelligence. Kellen whispered, "It's repairing, or restoring, something." The planet itself. Elias continued his delicate dance of gestures and energy. The Sentinel responded perfectly, amplifying his movements, connecting with the environment below, and revealing the full scope of its capabilities. The humans aboard the Aegis realized they were witnessing something beyond exploration. They were witnessing a partnership between human and machine, a harmony of intelligence, patience, and understanding. For a long moment, silence filled the observation deck. Then Elias turned, speaking to the crew in simple, clear words. It waited. It waited because it knew we needed each other. I understand it. I've always understood it. And now together we can awaken the planet safely. Mira stepped forward, awe in her voice. Elias, and this is incredible. The machine, the planet, all of it, he nodded. It's not just incredible. It's proof that humanity's qualities, patience, empathy, intelligence, can achieve what force or technology alone cannot. The Sentinel is not a weapon. It is a teacher and a guardian, and it responds to those who truly understand. The crew of the Aegis watched as the Sentinel's energy flows expanded outward, touching forests, mountains, rivers, and cities buried beneath the surface. Structures that had been dormant for centuries stirred to life. Cracks in the planet's crust sealed themselves. Rivers of energy traced across the land, stabilizing ecosystems and restoring harmony. Rios whispered, "It's incredible. We've seen humans conquer space, create incredible technology. But this is beyond anything we imagined." Mira's eyes glistened. "And it's human qualities that made it possible. Curiosity, courage, empathy, patience. Elias embodies all of that, and the Sentinel recognizes it." As the planet awakened, small drones and probes from the Aegis documented the changes. Crew members moved carefully, observing but not interfering. They understood now that their role was to witness and learn, not control. Humanity's greatest strength, they realized, was not in domination but in understanding. And they were seeing that truth unfold before them. Elias continued his work, guiding the Sentinel in delicate movements that no human could replicate without him. Slowly he turned to the crew, his eyes bright. "This is why we cannot force control. Machines like this, forces like this, require respect and patience. We must rise to their level, not demand they descend to ours." The Sentinel pulsed in response, almost as if agreeing, its surface shimmering with radiant light. The planet beneath them hummed, alive with renewed energy. Kellen stepped forward, voice full of wonder. "Captain, humanity has faced countless dangers, discovered countless worlds. But this is something we could never have imagined. And Elias, he taught us that understanding matters more than control." Mira placed a hand on the railing, staring at the glowing arcs connecting Elias and the Sentinel. "Yes, and now we have the chance to learn from him, to see how humans and machines can work together when we respect each other. This is the best of humanity. Courage, intelligence, patience, empathy. That is what the Sentinel recognizes." Rios, ever thoughtful, added quietly, "And it reminds us that we are capable of more than we realize. Humanity is not just about technology or conquest. It's about understanding, growing and rising to challenges beyond our imagination." Hours passed, but the crew barely noticed. They were absorbed in the unfolding miracle, watching as Elias and the Sentinel worked in perfect harmony. The planet below shimmered with renewed life, a testament to the power of patience, respect, and understanding. Finally, Elias stepped back, allowing the Sentinel to stabilize the planet on its own. The energy pulses slowed, the light arcs dimmed, and the machine hovered quietly, its surface smooth and calm. Mira exhaled deeply. "It's done. The planet, it's alive again. And humanity, we've learned a lesson we'll never forget." Elias smiled, looking at the crew. "Yes, this is just the beginning. There are more worlds, more machines, and more mysteries out there. But the lesson remains the same. Courage, intelligence, patience, and empathy. These are the qualities that will guide humanity forward." The crew of the Aegis watched in awe as Elias and the Sentinel shared a final, silent moment of understanding. Then slowly the machine retracted its energy flows, resuming its patient, silent vigil over the planet. For the humans aboard the Aegis, the experience left an indelible mark. They had seen intelligence beyond human comprehension, witnessed a planet restored, and understood the power of qualities that machines could not replicate. They had seen humanity at its best, curious, courageous, patient, and empathetic, and they would carry that lesson into every mission, every challenge, and every unexplored corner of the universe. The stars stretched endlessly, a silent witness to the quiet triumph of understanding. The Sentinel shimmered gently, Elias stood tall, and the humans of the Aegis knew that together they had glimpsed the extraordinary, and somewhere in the infinite vastness of space, humanity's true potential had been revealed, not through force, not through conquest, but through the very qualities that made them human.